Welcome, everybody, to our LinkedIn Live today. I'm your host, Ross Orrit, and today our focus is going to be on AI and automation, and in particular, how to maximize your SAP investment, and interestingly, how to de-risk S/4HANA journeys. I'd love to just give a couple of comments on logistics for today. We do have a comment section that we'd love to get your input, questions for our panel. And maybe to get things started, I'd love to hear from where people are from calling in today, because we have a great audience that is joining us. So please feel free to jot down and tell us where you're joining from today. While you do that, I'm going to introduce our two guests. First, I'd like to welcome Stefan Schuckfeil, who is the Global Head of Go-to-Market for AI at SAP. And also, I'd like to welcome Bob Cummings, who's the CEO of LeapGreat, which provides a SaaS platform that automates S/4HANA transformations. Maybe I'll start with Stefan. Can you tell the audience a bit about this role and what it means to be the head of global, AI go-to-market at SAP?
Yeah, of course, Ross. And first of all, big thank you for inviting me to the session. That's an honor for me. And just some quick background words. So I'm, as you mentioned, from SAP. I'm based in Walldorf at the corporate headquarters of SAP here in Germany. And my role is to lead our go-to-market efforts globally, including all the field enablement for AI, the sales and go-to-market programs, and also supporting the adoption programs for AI.
Terrific. And Bob, how about you? You spent 30 plus years at SAP, much like Stefan, I think, has. Can you tell us what you're up to these days?
Yeah, not quite 30 years. I was there for 28, although before that I was also doing SAP consulting and implementation. So it's been about 35 years in the industry itself, but 28 at SAP, and Stefan and I cross paths often during that time. So thanks so much, Stefan, for joining us today on that.
And well, our topic today is really centered around AI. But from my perspective, we're probably getting bombarded by all sorts of information about AI, and every vendor seems to be bringing out their own extensions to their software with AI built in. And many of you are familiar with the Gartner hype cycle that talks about technology adoption. And I'd like to start out and say, Stefan, where do you feel we're at with respect to AI? When you look at this kind of reference chart.
So regarding Gen AI, we often hear that analysts think we are at the peak of inflated expectations. So, and no wonder we hear that because of the tremendous hype around that. And of course, if this is true, and I'm not sure if it's really consistently true, of course, there's a big challenge now to make sure that we don't fall into the trough, but we really make sure that we find productive use cases and we find a good strategy to get the benefits from business AI and generative AI for companies very early and with a very concrete plan.
Yeah, I find that very interesting that you mentioned sort of business AI, because I think a lot of the hype is probably around, things that are more in the, more consumer or the average person domain with ChatGPT. But I'm wondering, how widely is AI really used in companies?
So our strategy is to provide AI solutions in basically two areas, or AI benefits in two areas. And of course, one area is during the implementation cycle, and we will dig deeper into that in a second step. And of course, the other way is to provide that for the solution in itself. And if we speak about the solution itself, the question is, what is the vision that you are driving towards to? And I very much like this term that I guess McKinsey coined of the generative enterprise. And fundamentally, that means there's a belief that generative AI can have a very, very significant positive impact on the business and the business outcome and the growth strategy. And of course, we are in the first steps, and we are discussing the use of AI for efficiency use cases now. And of course, that needs to be the focus, and that's a good fundamental start. But of course, there's a belief that AI can also help companies to differentiate their business models and their products. And we even see examples where this is used to generate growth and new business model. And the question around that, and that goes back to the hype cycle question you ask, are companies actually able to reap tangible benefit? And according to the results of the study from McKinsey that we see here is where we see that companies in certain industries that invest heavily in AI and a digital first strategy, that they can outgrow their competitors very, very significantly. And the examples here come from insurance, from consumer, and energy and material. And if you dive a little bit deeper into a line of business view, then you see, and the question is where to start, which line of business to start putting the focus on for an AI strategy. So I would say, of course, the topic of customer experience, customer centricity is a key topic where you can start, where AI can potentially have a very, very large impact. Then, of course, the other area is around efficiencies, trying to make your employees more productive with routine processes, but also AI being used for innovation, for research is definitely an area where benefits and efficiency gains can be reached very quickly. And that goes also to more scalability, agility to help the company grow. Just to mention some areas where it makes sense to start it.
No, that's very interesting. And I think of getting started, maybe I'll turn over to Bob. Often customers are having to, migrate from existing ECC systems and that. I'm wondering, with what you're doing at LeapGreat, how are you, seeing AI and how does that play in these journeys that people have to make so that they can start getting to those things that Stefan was mentioning?
Yeah, I think as Stefan was saying, a lot of the hype is kind of, I think there was an interesting article in The Economist in August, which the title was something like "Artificial Intelligence is Losing Hype." But if you looked at the next sentence, it says, "For some, that's proof that the tech will succeed." And I think we're seeing that. I think everybody's taking it extremely seriously. They are really. I don't think there's a company in the world which is not right now have a project on or somebody looking at this very deeply. And there are a number of applications which are starting to become, or use cases which are starting to become, low-hanging fruits for this kind of a technology. So we're seeing it. Of course, the software companies are embracing it wholesale. We are embracing it very much in what we do. And the companies we're seeing are really kind of sitting on the edge of their seats to see how they can use it, not only in their applications, but also in their journeys, which is where we do a lot of our work in the journey from where they are today to a next generation ERP system. And how can one speed that up? How can one remove the risk? And that's where we're very much engaged with customers on that.
And I think what I'd like to do, Bob, is maybe come back to that, because I know that you're using AI in what you're doing to achieve some of those results for the implementation. But I think first, maybe it'd be good to hear from Stefan a bit about SAP's AI strategy to set a bit of context for our audience and where it can be best leveraged for the investment. So could I have you comment on a bit of that around the AI strategy at SAP then, Stefan?
Yes, of course. So I would very much want to give more background on the SAP Business AI offering. And the offering mainly has 3 parts. And maybe if you can show the slide. So one part of the offer is very much centered around giving the user a new experience and a much better and easier access to data and processes. And this is a layer that you see here as Joule. This is the user interaction layer via generative AI. And you can see this as the SAP version of Copilot or ChatGPT that combines both generative AI as well as business and enterprise capabilities. And that's not only focused at one solution, but focused at the entire portfolio. That's the first pillar. The second pillar is AI embedded into processes. What we see here is embedded AI capabilities. So where AI is infused into the existing line of business or core processes to make those processes more intelligent and more efficient. And the third layer is, of course, customers want to use any AI models that exist in the market, but they also want to use the data and all the processes that they have through the SAP solution in a secure way with authorization concepts. And the AI foundation with the OpenAI Hub based on BTP enables customers to actually build their own scenarios using any external model and link that very much to the S4HANA and the LOB world. So these are the three key pillars of SAP Business AI. And if you go to the next slide, you see that this is actually a very, very, very dynamic field. It's a core pillar of our investment and our innovation strategy. So we are announcing 100 new Gen AI use cases in our solution. We are working on capabilities where Gen AI helps us to quicker write code. But also there's a mobile version of the Gen AI user interface, Joule, available. Also a version of Joule where customers can more easily write their own code. Also, we're working on agent for Joule, and incorporating more and more models. Just to give a very quick glimpse to show that how strategic this area is for us.
Okay, thank you. That gives us a great context around that. And I'm wondering if you could pick just one thing of, where to advise customers, that are trying to move to S4HANA. What things could they leverage first around AI?
So very often customers have existing LOB solution from SAP, and to connect Joule to the existing or use Joule within the existing LOB solutions may be a very good first start to get actually to communicate the user benefits and to let the user experience the power of Joule so they can get prepared for the benefits that they can get on the S4HANA solution. And so that could be a very, very nice first entry step into SAP Business AI.
Oh, very good. That's a very good, thought process. It really resonates with me because with it being very focused on business AI and being line of business specific, everything else is fairly generic. And I'm wondering, Bob, you've spent about 30 years helping customers implement ERP. I know we talked about earlier, you're doing some things with AI to help in that automation. Can you, fill us in a little bit more of how you've done that there at LeapGreat?
Yeah, sure. So when you look at these journeys that customers go on to implement SAP or upgrade SAP, it's often I think when I look back on our experience, the biggest problem I would say is like you don't know what you don't know. So you break out into a journey where a lot of the actual real details of what's going to be reality come very late in the project, and so you kind of have many surprises late in the project where you say, oh, that's how the system works, and I didn't realize that is how it was. And then you start to have change requests that come into it. So what what we always thought, wouldn't it be nice is if you could, before you even start your project, if you could kind of, let me just imagine if you had an AI agent that you could tell the agent to say, hey, what could you just take a look at my company, take a look at where I need to go in S/4HANA, and just whip up firstly now a system that represents my case as it is today, and I'll give you my information, and then you create a first system. We always thought over the years that would be so powerful if you could actually, not just a demo or a proof of concept, but really your company running in the system first. And of course, you haven't done the project yet, so this is not going to be perfect, but at least you can educate yourself so that when you go into discovery and preparation and exploration of the system, you've actually done a lot of the heavy lifting and you're working in reality from day one. We call this front loading because most projects in the world are very backloaded. Most of the heavy lifting happens toward the tail end of the project, and we want to put that in the beginning. And AI is perfect for that. So what we've basically done is we're very privileged to have a number of people who have, in fact, much more experience than I do. They've been around since, in fact, even from R1 days of SAP and then into R2 and R3, where we see many patterns that repeat themselves in these projects. And if you can teach the AI system to understand that and actually do a lot of the implementation work for you up front, then you can actually have a much smoother sailing in your project. And so that's what we do. But there's one thing to keep in mind. I think that the most important thing is that you work close to standards and you structure it, because the more standardized and the more structured and clean your systems are, the easier it is for AI to understand it, and the easier it is for it to build value around that. So that's what we're doing with it, Ross.
Okay, that's very interesting. So it sounds like, there's kind of basically an AI model that kind of generates out this system that aligns closely to standard, or the SAP standards. I wonder if I could ask Stefan a bit about how this getting back to standard really plays into SAP's strategy. And you mentioned, Bob, about how you'd be better off with AI, but what's SAP's perspective on that, getting back to standard and AI?
I can only highly agree to what has been said. So, I mean, you can look at AI as a way to supercharge your SAP investment and to supercharge your S/4HANA solution. But in order to really leverage the full benefit of SAP Business AI, of course, having an upgrade strategy, getting to the latest release, and using a clean core strategy to be ready for subsequent upgrades is, of course, a key element. And one other aspect I would also want to introduce, of course, to get good AI results, clean data and good data quality is also very, very important. So I think the approach that you just brought up, Bob, is very important to not backload. So clean core, good data is not something for later. This is something for the beginning of the project to really get the full benefit from S/4HANA and also from Business AI on top of it.
Yeah, it's very interesting from that perspective. I know there's a lot of talk in the marketplace a bit about moving to more to standard, but a lot of customers are concerned about where they find themselves right now in having a more highly customized system. Do you have some perspective, Bob, about how that a customer can kind of rationalize that? Because they certainly want to get the benefits of AI, which I think you both are promoting to say is best done if they get back to standard, best practices, things like that. But how does a customer kind of rationalize that highly customized world they're living in, maybe with ECC versus a desire to get to the new world?
Yeah, so I think the thing to think about is, if you're looking at a world of a very customized and very bespoke legacy environment, and you want to get to a new world, there's of course the famous greenfield versus bluefield. Do you re-implement? Do you go clean and try to get as close as possible to standard, or do you bring the old world with you? in reality, you're always going to have a mix of those worlds. And what I'm seeing in customers, most customers would like to go to greenfield. It's just that there's so much that has to be brought into the new world that sometimes it's just maybe not economical or practical. And so you have to bring some of the old customizing with you into this new world. And there's ways to do that. There's many tools on the market that help you to do that. But what we found is that if you can use AI, and if you can structure your project in such a way, you can actually still get the best of both worlds of green and brown field implementation. Sometimes one talks about blue field, that we actually take models and try to get the customer as much benefit into the future with as much as they need to bring back from the past into the new world. And it all depends. I think most customers I talk to, they say, well, we'd love to go to clean core, we'd love to go to greenfield, but it's just the reality is we have a lot we need to bring. So if you can cut the project in a certain way, and you can use AI in a very creative way, you can actually find a way that you can take just what's necessary and actually get as much value into it. So even if you were to do a pure brownfield project, those projects are still expensive and difficult to do. Why don't you try and bake value into that so that we can take you a step further into the future? And that's what we try to do at LeapGreat, is to help companies do that, to say, hey, we can bring actually the effort, the risk, the cost, the time down, and you can still bring some of what you need to from the old world, but get as close as possible, as Stefan said, to clean core and best practices. Because if you do, you will be prepared for future innovation in a much better way. AI is wonderful, but it's not magic. It's you can almost think of it like a human. A human works much better in an environment that's orderly and clean and transparent and can be understood. And it's the same for AI. If the AI can understand the best practices and can understand the standards and structures, it can bring you much more value.
You raise a good point there, Bob. And I do want to remind our audience, if we'd love to take some questions from yourselves as we go along. I've got lots of questions to keep asking, but I'd really love to get your interaction and input. So feel free to post those in the comments, and we'll get those to our panel. But maybe just to play up on that for a second, Bob, one of the things you mentioned is these projects and transformations are big and probably nasty in some regards. Can you, I would think that adding AI into that, mix, doesn't that just increase the risk to those journeys?
Yeah, I don't think it's, of course, as you say, true. It's another moving part that you throw into the mix. So of course there is that consideration that you say, hey, leave me alone with all this AI and automation stuff. Let me first go live, and then later we'll do all that new stuff. But the truth is, we actually have found that AI and automation and all these new things can actually reduce the risk and actually can help you in the project. It's an element which actually speeds things up and actually can get you there in a much better way. We believe actually it's the best way to reduce risk in these projects is by doing some of what I was mentioning with front loading, using AI to actually bring you much closer to that promised land of clean core and best practices, even bringing things together. So I think if you really want to reduce the cost, the time, the risk, and so on, I think AI is really a key to help. And we've seen that over and over again. It's starting to get more and more momentum. People are taking it more and more seriously now. And we believe that in the next year, this is going to be front and center for many of the projects, if not all the projects that we're seeing.
And Stefan, is there sort of a perspective you have on de-risking these SAP implementations so that you can allow AI to be, added, maybe earlier in the cycle than people are thinking about? Because some people think about it, well, we got to get to S4 and then we can start doing AI. Do you have a perspective there?
Absolutely. I mean, so far we discussed a lot about the benefits AI can bring to S4HANA and to the entire product suite. But maybe we haven't put enough focus on the value AI can add in the implementation cycle and preparing the implementation cycle and actually the project. And of course, you can imagine that AI helps you to be much closer to standard, so much better leverage best practices to improve your data quality with lower efforts, to find automation scenarios, but also to enablement of the project team, better alignment of within the project team and with the business. Those are all tasks where AI can help already in the implementation cycle.
Okay, very interesting. And Bob, do you want to comment? Because I know that you've really, used AI to create the basis for what you're doing at LeapGreat for the implementation. Is there a bit more specifics that you can describe of how you did that?
Yeah, maybe I can just use an example for to make it more tangible with working with some customers. So every customer is different. Even though best practices are standardized, every company is going to have their own flavors and nuances of different ways of what they do. It used to take us for a particular task to prepare a customer for a certain process, taking things from Signavio in different areas to actually bring things together. It used to take us about 6 hours to front load one of these processes for the customer. We've been using AI tools, many of the ones Stefan has been mentioning, where we use models to actually attack that and brought it down into like less than 10 minutes to do certain things. So of course it took a while to train the model, but once it gets trained, it can go faster and faster on these things. So it's kind of an exponential thing. The more you use it, the faster you can use it and the better it gets and the more value it brings. And so we definitely see a huge value in just getting started. To tell you the truth, we were not AI experts ourselves. We're just users of AI. We use the models that exist. We use it. We use them to do what we do. We're experts in the SAP environment, and it's amazing how far those things have come to be really usable and easy to adopt. And we see that just increasing more and more as we use it.
And wondering, Stefan, is if you could, any practical examples that you've seen that customers have experienced that have moved to S4 and have gone back to standard as it relates to, the use of AI, for example?
Absolutely. So would want to mention 2 customer examples that we are particularly proud of, where this was the case. So first, I would want to mention Zalando here. Zalando, one of our big customers based in Berlin, which is a very big food retailer, so one of the biggest food delivery platforms globally. And they have actually used AI to much better forecast the payments and the cash inflow, so to predict any turbulences or disturbance that could happen, to much better manage payment and cash flows. So that's one scenario that comes here to my mind with a very concrete benefit. Then in the beginning, we said a lot of customers are focusing on the CX, on their own customer experience. Here I want to mention Gibson Brands. It's a retailer for guitars, music instruments. And here the customer has used our CX suite, Immersis, data and AI solutions to provide a much more consistent multi-channel experience for their customers. So these are some two very concrete examples I would like to mention in this context.
Excellent. And just a reminder that if you have any questions, we're just, I'm going to shift into sort of a bit of a wrap up, but we'd love to, if there's any questions from the audience, please feel free to post those, and I'll make sure to get Bob and Stefan to comment. I was wondering, just to play off on that, Stefan, is if you, for what Bob's been now doing over at LeapGreat with the, using AI for automating implementations, have you had a chance to see what they're doing and have any perspective for, given your role in charge of all the go-to-market for AI, and wondering what you think about what they're doing?
I believe that, one of the big challenges is that some customers are still hesitant to go to S4HANA from from older releases, and they're still in the decision process. And in that decision process, risk and acceleration and additional benefits they could get, for example, from AI, can play an absolute key role. So many of the points we discussed here could very much help this decision process. And that is really key for us.
Excellent. And so I just thought I'd take the final minute, if maybe we can get 30 seconds from each of you, if there's one or two key takeaways that you would suggest for our audience. Maybe I'll start with Stefan, and then Bob, if you can follow on.
I just want to mention again, so that 30 years in IT and with SAP now, and we had these waves of innovation, and each of them, I mean, was a big wave, and as an IT enthusiast, that was very motivating for me. But I believe now with AI, this is really the biggest change and the biggest wave we are riding, and I'm very motivated and very keen to use AI to bring additional benefits to our customers.
And Bob, any takeaways you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I feel like Stefan, it feels a bit like 1990s again, where you see this massive opportunity to add tremendous value to customers. In those days, it was, of course, the advent of ERP. Today, it's really this advent of AI. And I think the key thought I'd like to leave is that, I've mentioned it again, I'm just repeating myself, but the best value you can get is through standardization, because then the machine can understand what you're doing in a much better way. And the more one can standardize, the closer we can get to world-class best practice and SAP best practice standards, the more value we can derive from AI. And very excited to work with SAP and Stefan in this huge wave. I think we're looking up at a mountain or a tsunami of more demand than we have ever seen in all of our years working for this, in a much shorter time as well. In the next few years, there's going to be more movement in this space than we've ever seen in all of our careers. So extremely excited to join forces with SAP on this amazing journey.
So I guess the summary is lots of value from AI, but the key is getting back to standard as part of that journey. And so I'd like to thank Bob and Stefan for joining us here today. Our next session is going to be on improving quality around SAP implementations with automation, and that'll be a session that Bob will be as a panelist together with special guests from Tricentis, which is a key partner in this whole ecosystem with SAP. So we look forward to that. That'll be on January the 16th. So once again, thank you for your time, and thanks to Bob and Stefan for a great discussion today.
Thank you
for inviting me, Ross.
Thank you.
Bye.